We learn to live and live to learn in what has turned out to be an unprecedented situation, an unprecedented pandemic, with history being written across the geography of Mother Earth. And a minor virus has created a major catastrophe, making each and every one of us rewind, rethink, reboot, re strategize, reformat before we restructure and rebuild. Rebuild a new normal, rebuild a new future. In the world of higher education, they say, the only thing constant is change. In a pandemic, they say, the only thing certain is uncertainty. It's correct to assume that progress must come from change, but it's equally correct to assume that all change does not lead to progress. And that's what makes the situation rather unique in its presentation of challenges, solutions, and most importantly, opportunities. If there's one trait that's required to overcome this, it's got to be the trait of wisdom. Wisdom emanating from past experience and knowledge, and wisdom to be able to anticipate, evolve, embrace, and then recreate a new future. Several more people in the world of education as an industry have shown a beacon when it comes to taking big steps to understand the future. And one of them is Mr. K.V. Ramani, who's joining us now from the Sai University. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Well,
Thank you, Chetan. It's a pleasure talking to you.
we say the program is titled Learning from Earning, but we also know that there's a lot of earning from learning. Which do you believe is more potent, learning from earning or earning from learning?
Well, it's a very interesting question, Chetan, to begin a conversation, because I believe the two are interdependent. You begin your life, which I think is going to be a key theme of my conversation with you, is people think their education is towards a job and a placement and a job and their earning. And of course, they think they settle down in life. I don't think that's correct. That's only the beginning. Because that earning is only the beginning of your life's learning. Whereas earning may start as soon as you finish a degree or get a job. But the learning never stops. You learn all your life. So I don't think there is an earning and a learning can be separated in my view. You earn, you can, but whatever you do in your life, you continuously learn throughout your life. And your learning helps you to earn more. For example, if you're a student and you get a job, you earn a salary. Then you get the learning. And from that learning, if you will become an entrepreneur, then it becomes gives you a new earning. And that earning makes you make a lot of money. And then you learn in the process of how to be an entrepreneur. Then you become, now that you made a lot of wealth, you want to become an investor. That's the new learning. So life goes on. It never ends. In my view, learning are interdependent and will continue to be the same.
How brilliant your reflection upon the two words and their potency and the fact that they are actually symbiotic and interdependent. And more importantly, your observation on its continuity, which really makes us improve as we move along in the process. Now, one way of even analyzing, the earning from learning is by looking at the business or the enterprise or the entrepreneurship of education per se as a sector. Now, in my experience of 3 decades of journalism, I've come across four distinct people who actually entered the realms of education. The first one was typically the realtor. He was finding himself a need to enhance value. So either he started a hospital, or he started a school or an education center, or he started a hotel as a value up chain. The second was a far more in-depth and a far more, I'd say, sustainable or a thoughtful model, which emanated more from the heart than from the mind. And that was the philanthropist who chose to actually benefit or allow benefit to come from masses from his own profits. The third was essentially an educationist who realized that doing a job was not good enough. For him to make a deeper impact in society, it was important for him to take the reins in his own hands. So he turned an entrepreneur. And the fourth would be people, I assume, like yourself, who are actually technocrats, who come from the field of technology, but who realize that if there's one sector that can leverage the most from technology, it's got to be education. Now, assuming that these are the four possibilities of an educationist or the edupreneur, which do you think will be the most sustainable going forward and why?
Okay, very poignant question, Chetan. Once again, let me just say that I would paraphrase the four models that you have into two buckets only. I very clearly see, I'm saying this in the Indian context, not in the global context. In the Indian context, education as a business, as one concept, which is perhaps the most prevalent model today. We may or may not acknowledge, but every single business unit runs an enterprise, runs an education institution. Or every education institution wants to run an enterprise or become an incubation center. They seem to be more focused on business, education, synergy. Education to make a business and a business to create an education opportunity. That's a synergy, whether it's a realtor or some manufacturer or process industry, whatever. But the other hand, the model that I think is education as a service. That is the reason why, in fact, we started Sai University as a differentiator. After you can ask me why Sai University, I'd be glad to answer your concept of Sai University. The key is that for too long in India, in the recent times, education has become an enterprise. It's become a business. It's become a venture. Even if you have to, go towards seeking funds, it's treated as no different from any other business and enterprise to say that, okay, what's your capital employed? What is your capex? What's your operating income model? What is your, price to book earning? What is your projected? When do you turn cash flow positive? When do you turn free of debt? I mean, this is evaluated business enterprise, except a select institutions which are run by the governments. And they're again entirely dependent on the grant of the government, at the whims and fancies, or you can say the will and pressure of the government. And they say they can give you the grant, or they can withhold it, they can increase it or decrease it. But the quality of education cannot depend on year-to-year grants from a government. It has to have a sustainability. It has to have a foreseeable 10-year program to say, I'm going to have so much of income assured to me, whatever else happens. And therefore, I'm going to continue on this mission to say that I'll provide high quality education, irrespective of whether I get funds or not. Now, let's switch back the context to the most developed nation in the world today, the most developed economy, the USA, the United States. The education institutions in the US, the Ivy League schools, have literally transformed the society for over 250 years. And those schools, a large majority of them, I'm excluding the state-funded schools, the private schools are run by grants, foundations, which are run by rich families who made money elsewhere, and they saw the importance of creating an institution which can kind of sustain by itself, like the Harvard model, the Stanford model. I mean, you can say countless institutions, far too many to go by. They had grants, issued grants, and therefore the independence of the institution was ensured. The faculty was free to teach. They're sure of the sustainability of the long-term viability of the institution. The students were supposed to get the best of faculty and the learning from the academics, and the university's future was not dependent on the students' fee income. On the other hand, the students were dependent on the scholarship from the university to even sustain themselves. So that sustainability model, it doesn't exist in India. Most of the institutions are having what's your current year income and revenue and expense, and where are we funding the deficit, when are you making a positive cash flow, when are you free of debt, and therefore it becomes a business model. Whereas education, in my view, should be a service. And there should be service approach from the giver and the service approach from the taker as well. And that is when the true knowledge, the spreading of the true knowledge happens.
Well, it's very interesting that you say that, and let me draw out some pointers from what you spoke. And first of all, of course, you mentioned about the Gurukul system of education. Now, at that time, you said, sir, there was an exchange without consideration. That presupposes the fact that there was an element of Guru Dakshina which was undefined, and at several times that was also kept concealed. It wasn't disclosed. Now, how do you marry that in the current context of a fee, given the enormous infrastructure which is required to run an institution of this sort? That's one part. And the second part is you mentioned that knowledge was imparted and concluded. Now, that presupposes that the knowledge at some stage was desired and concluded. But to what conclusion? Because today, one also questions as a student, and I continue to be one all throughout my life, is if I am to educate myself, where am I going to benefit? What is going to be the logical end of that education at some level? These are two things which really play as conflicting forces at some stage. Would you like to throw some light as to your opinion on them?
Yeah, number one, let me take the first question that you asked before, the Guru Dakshina question. Dakshina was never meant to be money. Sikh obedience to Guru's word itself is a Dakshina. Dakshina is never a concept of cash. So Guru Dakshina could even be a respect to the Guru. It could be doing, what we call the worshipping the Guru, puja to the Guru, or a thanksgiving to the Guru. It could be any form of reverence or conveying an acceptance and acknowledgement of, that knowledge that you receive is Guru Dakshina. And therefore, the current context of Dakshina as money is not correct. Dakshina is, any offering made without a demand is a Dakshina. You know the story of, Dronacharya, where, Ekaleva cuts his finger as a Dakshina. He didn't ask for it. He didn't ask to learn from the Guru. He actually conceived of him as his mentor and learned. And then just to spite him, of course, this is not a great example to give in the current context. The Guru demanded a Dakshina, and Ekaleva gave it immediately without a hesitation, right? Because the Guru demanded it. Even if we had not imparted the knowledge, but being a virtual Guru, it could possibly compare it with the current Zoom online classes. So you can say that was a mental online class, to say that he received education without having internet, but then he paid a Dakshina. So the concept I would like to say is Dakshina in any form is something that you give without a demand, with the notable exceptions. That is a mythology. Mythology cannot be taken beyond a point of logical extension. But the second question, can you rephrase your second question?
The second question was the impact of education, also perhaps alluding to employability. Is that where do you take the education till? How do you say an education is complete? I mean, education is required to be aimed at a particular objective. Now, most of the objectives given are, well, they're very far-reaching, but they're quite unspecific. They talk about holistic education. Now, it's very difficult to benchmark or to draw parameters to be able to judge what really is holistic education. But yes, if you're able to say that you'll educate a person so that he's able to get himself a job at so-so price, it becomes slightly more specific. Yes, no doubt, it's perhaps a very tunnel vision of looking at education, but even that's near the hour, given that this country is hitting an unemployment rate of 45-year high.
Yeah, let me answer that differently. The key, as I said earlier, is education itself is a means to an end. And you can define the end yourself. Each person defines it the way that suits them best. Most people define education as a means to get a job and a livelihood. Because in the Indian context, getting a job and getting an income, an assured steady income to support yourself and your family seem to be the kind of beginning of life for most people, beginning of life. But education need not stop there. It could be the beginning of life of an individual's career. It could be beginning of someone raising a family. He or she is getting educated, getting a job, raising a family. Or it could be a conceptually at the beginning of a career, but that doesn't stop education. Education, formal or informal, continues, as I said, lifelong. Education is, in my view, is a means to acquire knowledge. The ultimate goal is to acquire knowledge. And knowledge can be formal or informal. Acquisition of knowledge need not be formal. It need not be through schools or colleges or university system. It need not be through Zoom calls or online education. You could be doing practical experience and learning. That's also education. If we take let's say, the great people in this country, a lot of them are not educated, means that they've not gone to a college and acquired a degree. But I'll ask you this question. Can you or I go talk to a farmer in a village and teach him a thing or two about how to raise a crop? I don't think so. Maybe if you're a student of agriculture, we got a degree or a master's in agriculture, maybe you can tell them a few things. And a farmer in return will give you a tip or two. So the reason I'm just saying is that farmer, you call him educated or not, he's very knowledgeable, but he does not have a degree certificate for him to prove that he's knowledgeable. But if you ask him questions, he'll talk about soil conditions, he'll talk about watering conditions, he'll know which time of the year is going to rain, and you know which crop is suited for the time of the season and the rain and the soil conditions, without testing, labs and chemical engineering and testing the soil and the water. He can tell you that from his experience. That is self-taught or acquired from others. That is knowledge. Education also can give you that knowledge. I'm not saying no. If you are an agriculture scientist, the opposite side of the spectrum,
Right.
then you go through, your undergrad degree, your master's degree, and then you specialize and get a PhD in agriculture. And then you talk about how to do farming in modern ways to conserve water, preserve soil, green farming and all of the stuff. And you can come back and acquire that knowledge and you can go and impart it to farmers. Great. But both are knowledgeable in their own ways. That's the way I see it.
Let's say the farmer is learned, not conventionally educated, but certainly learned, and that goes a long way if for him, at least, to employ himself and perhaps.
Yeah, but does it mean that educated are not learned? The converse?
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of course, I mean, is the way the methodology you adopt towards
Yes.
education. There's
Yes.
a conventional formal education, and there's a whole lot of informal education that happens alongside. Now, you mentioned two very distinct things, Mr. Ramani, in your points of view and your analysis on the age-old system of the Gurukul system. When you called education a service,
Yes.
the second point which you made was that education, even if it's not employable, within the realms of an institute, it has to be treated as an ongoing process. Now,
Yes.
if one is to integrate the two, the service part and the ongoing part, what could an alumni of Sai look forward to? How would you term an alumni of Sai to be?
That's a very quick question. Before I get to the answer to that question, I think I need to tell you first of all, what does Sai University stand for? The simple vision of Sai University is to create an institution of global eminence from India. Okay, it's a very simple vision statement. It's a one-line vision statement that I've given as a founding chancellor of Sai University. I said the university will have a vision that we will create an eminent global university from India. Now, first let's analyze that sentence because this analysis is going to help me answer your question. That is to say that in all these years since independence, we are about 73 years of the independent India. We do not have any institution in India of global eminence anywhere in the top 50 or, to my knowledge, even in the top 100. Why is that? Why haven't we got there? What does it take to get there? So our vision is to say that we will create a Sai University as a global university from India. And I'm going to take you to lead the methodologies a little later after answering this question as a follow through. And second, how are we going to get there? The way to get there is the second part of our university's mission. The mission is to create a multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary university. I know this is a kind of a buzzword that's become, but you can see that the project report we made for Sai University 3 years ago, before we got the application to the Tamil Nadu government and the approval received to form a university and as a state private university. It was approved, received in July 2018, right? There itself we given a purpose of Sai University as to create an interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary university and to say that we provide holistic education. Now, I'm going to explain these two things to you, if you'll permit me for a minute, because this doesn't sound it to just like a buzzword, but it means seriousness. The first word I'm going to say that we say the globally eminent university and multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary university are interlinked statements. Today, Indian education is extremely structured. It doesn't give the student a freedom to choose what she or he wants. Supposing I'm a student who I'm interested in doing, let's say, major in physics, but I want to do a minor in music or sports or cricket. Why can't I do it? Today in the Indian education system, the way we structured is if you have to take physics, you have to take chemistry and mathematics, or you have to take, bio and mathematics or something or the other, that pre-packaged it for you. The university system as currently existing is offering you courses which are pre-packaged. You cannot choose. What we are going to do is we are going to give you an a la carte menu. Would you prefer a pre-packaged meal or would you prefer an a la carte meal? Where you have 108 dishes thrown around the table, would you like to go and pick what you want for starter, dessert, the main course, all of that as your liking? Or would you like to say that I'm going to be served an airline lunch and that's what I get? Packaged and given to you, by several people have gone through it, wanting to go through the same without complaining. This is the difference that we want to believe. We believe we can make it. And I will tell you another example. We are going to have liberal education as one school. Mind my words, they're not liberal arts, it's liberal education. It's a very carefully crafted sentences. Because we've been thinking about the strategy and the vision and the mission of the university for almost 3 years now. Liberal education means education which literally liberates the mind, frees your mind. So you should be able to pursue the knowledge, the study that your mind wants it. Let's take a student today. A student of today is pursuing a course primarily because when they do the 12th standard, till their 12th standard board exams or their central board or state board, they taught by rote learning, which is completely destroying creativity of the brain. The human brain is the greatest creation. Its potential is infinite, but we are not even using, let's say, 20% of our human brain's capability. And then we are further reducing it by rote learning to say, you need to answer this question, and these are the keywords that you need to tick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Based on that, you get 95% in a ball, and then you get this branch, then you can select it, and then your future is going to depend on whether you get 95% on the pass, or 90%, or 85%, or 80%. That determines what course you get in, not what you're interested in, number one. You don't get to study what the subject you're interested in, but you get to study the subject that you get based on the marks you get in by your rote learning, which is my fundamental objection to choice of courses. Number two, today's student who join in undergrad education, they're 17 or 18 at best. And they're not at this point of time decided what course they want to study. Most of them taking the courses that their parents tell them Betty, you take this course, it's good for you because you know you can be a great lawyer in this world. We believe we have the potential to be a great doctor. You have the, you know, you can be a great scientist or whatever. The parents see the potential, or they go to where the friends are going, to the most popular colleges, the most sought after courses. We have a mentality of following a leader. So if someone is good in law, so if someone he or she is going to a law school, her friends or his friends, they need to go to law school. All right, let's go study together. It's a buddy approach rather than what you want to do. So what we want to do in Sai University is to provide a liberal opportunity of education in year one. Year one, we give a foundation courses. And first of all, year one will be a great leveler. First semester would provide opportunity for students from all over India who come from diverse culture, diverse societal background, so diverse family background, diverse economic background, diverse linguistic background to come to one cohesive group of students so that the faculty can teach. So we're going to give them the ability to do creative writing, creative thinking, analytical ability, mathematical ability, skills, and all of those steps in the first semester so that the whole class comes to a datum level. What we call datum level is the same level at which you can build on. It's a foundation program.
Mhm.
And then after that, we will do what's called 101 courses on a variety of subjects. Let's say economics, logic, mathematics, philosophy, astronomy, physics, chemistry, maths, engineering, law. And then you allow the students to pick and choose four, five, six of those and see what they like. So, you know, sampling before your meal. You taste, let me take a spoon of this and see how it works out. And then you like the palate, you like the dish. Then you go and year two, you select your major and then you select your minor and the second minor. And if you want, then you audit the course. So if you have a great interest in physics and you're also talented in music, as I said earlier, you can take a major in physics, a minor in music, and a second minor maybe in sports. Or you want to do or some other course that you want to say, I want to do astronomy. I like astronomy. Maybe you can audit a course in astronomy, whatever. So that combination you can get in year two to year three and year four. So that scheme of things is what we call liberal education and gives the versatility of the student. Because
Right.
tomorrow, the world, we don't even know 5 years from now what skills are needed.
Mhm.
It is not today's courses. Today, if you know the world is using skill sets far beyond what people imagine, it's no longer computer science degree. They're
Right.
looking for creative designers. They're looking for product designers. They're looking for, people with completely different skill sets than what we are looking for a few years earlier. So we see that the foundation is created as a level, and then you create this as undergrad program.
Mm.
And then after that, the student can take up a postgraduate area of specialization. And then, of course, go towards a master's or a PhD, or go take a management, or go towards business, entrepreneurship, whatever. And we are only, let's understand this, we are only providing these steps for the student to build their own life. We are only creating the pathway. The students have to build their own careers and their own lives.
Brilliant.
We create that, let's say, provide them an undergraduate degree opportunity, a postgraduate degree opportunity. Maybe they take up a job for 2 years, 3 years. They
Right.
understand what business is like. Maybe thereafter they go get a PhD or they become an entrepreneur, they become
Mhm.
a startup. Maybe they become successful and then maybe they'll exit. And I said earlier, they maybe they'll become private equity investors, whatever.
Right.
So the career of the individual has to take on based on individual choice.
Mhm.
And we are only going to enable them to make the choice. And that is going to be the concept in which Sai University is going to be designed. The
Mm.
course curriculum has been designed that way. We have a very eminent Vice Chancellor, Professor Jamshid Barucha from Boston, who is joining us, who has joined us effectively June. He's waiting to come to India because of this travel restriction, but he'll be here very soon. And
Right.
we are already preparing the curriculum, pedagogy, and all that to make sure that when we roll out the program in July 2021, the courses are offered on this basis, and that the student are going to make a feel the difference between this university and the other universities which are offering set uh, predetermined courses and
Right.
package credits hours. Does it explain?
Quite brilliant. Quite brilliant. I mean, and quite very detailed. Thank you for for detailing that for us, particularly how you are investing not just in the education of the future, but the student of the future through reliability as well as, more importantly, I think, relevance. Now, you mentioned a few words which you called buzzwords, which essentially multidisciplinary skills. You talked about global eminence. You talked about holistic education. All of these find their presence at several junctures in the national education policy of
Yeah.
2020, right? So there's an enormous alignment. Almost there seems to be a preemption on your part. But that having been said, we've always realized over the years, and I'm sure you too will agree to that, this country has thrown open the best of brains in terms of policy making. But when it comes to the will to be able to execute on the ground, not just on a sustainable basis, but on a scalable basis, we've fallen woefully short. Now, I can understand you doing this within the confines of one private institution, but to make it at a country level requires a humongous effort. Where do you think are the shortfalls, particularly because you will definitely either be a victim or a victor from one of those?
Okay, let me answer it two ways. But before I answer that, I have to first of all touch upon the new education policy, because that's going to be the foundation of my answer. The new education policy is a brilliant document, in our opinion. It's going to, for example, for the first time in the history of perhaps independent India, we're going to go away from the Macaulay School of Education. Let's imagine the current roots of Indian education. Where did they start? They started from the erstwhile British ruler of India. The one great contribution they made to India, apart from, of course, building the railroads, was to give us the English language. But for that, we possibly be speaking diverse languages in this country. I'm not decrying it. We all need our mother tongue. We need to have multiple languages because India is a continent, it's not a country. Therefore, the diversity is India's beauty. But we also have to have one or two unifying forces. And English, I see as one such force, not unifying India and unifying the globe. Because globally, English has become like a gold standard in almost all parts of life, not only education, business, commerce, life everywhere, except a few countries that centered around the language. So if you take that system of education, they introduced Lord Macaulay introduced system of education in India to produce what was needed at the time of the British to produce clerks for the British government. You can go into the history of India. I'm not a student of history. I'm a student of physics and computer science. But then I've read a bit of history that they had the system so that they had very good, intelligent clerks in India to support the British government. We took the system further apart, made it more complex, and spread it around the country and multiplied it by a few hundred times in volume. And that is our current system. And this is what the new education policy is transforming. In our view, the new education policy is transforming complete education, overhaul of education system from the primary school system to the PhD postdoctoral level. And the second thing, I'll just give you an example. If we take the current system of education today, we have multiple regulators, and therefore interdisciplinary is not possible. If you want to run a course which has economics, and you also want to have a system which combines with it law, supposing you want to offer a course which combines governance, economics, and law policy making, you have to get at least approval from 2 or 3 agencies. There's no one agency. I don't want to name the agencies because I'm not here to criticize or comment upon anyway. I'm talking about the system. Whereas the new education policy gives you one unified system of putting all subjects, all courses, all programs together in a cohesive way. Therefore, it is talking about multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and well, let me just clarify. We thought of this like 3.5 years ago. And the new education policy has just come now. I don't know how it has come about. We're saying the same things. I can say that I didn't have any insights into it.
I use the word preemption.
No, it was not preempted. I think because until after it was published, we had no clue about what NEP was coming up with. But I think it's God-sent opportunity. What we are working on was kind of brought in as the Sai University wish list has been brought in the new education policy. Therefore, what I'm saying is the new education policy as a foundation is excellent, is outstanding, is world class. Just to give you a tiny example, our undergrad degree now, let's say liberal arts, is a 3-year program. Whereas if you want to go to US or a postgraduate, many of the students here won't do that. They want a 4-year undergrad program. So you have to do an extra 1 year someplace or work in someplace for 1 year, and then only you can join a US university. Why are we not in sync with the rest of the world? So now the new education policy underlines the importance of integrating Indian education system with the world education system. So we will have an undergraduate degree which is 4 years, and it's even gone beyond. The first year you can exit with a certificate, second year with a diploma, third year with a degree, or a fourth year with the honors program. And of course, you can join the honors program to a postgraduate degree anywhere in the world. Second, it gives you complete autonomous powers to the university to offer interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary courses because there's going to be one regulatory agency, Higher Education Commission of India. You need one source of approval, one source of accreditation, one source of quality testing. And that's a brilliant design. So coming to the second point, therefore, this is a revolutionary policy. And to implement it is going to take time. And to spread it around the country is going to take even more time. Because it not only means that existing universities and faculty have to learn, they also have to unlearn. They cannot say anymore, no, this is not, we've done it all these years. That is not acceptable in the new education policy. You have to think differently. The paradigm has changed. Under the new paradigm, you have to think differently and offer new courses, new ways of teaching, new ways of combining programs. You have to have new ways of scheduling timetable, classrooms, operations of the university. And another important point is the differentiator between the central university, state university, private university, deemed university, all of this is going here. Everybody is coming into kind of almost one platform. Pretty much to say that if you want to be under an EP, you can do it. You don't have to have a separate permission for arts degree and a separate one for engineering degree, a separate one for a law degree or whatever. You can have all of them under one university, one approval. And that means your faculty should be trained to say that, I'm going to talk about a system where I graduate a student with X number of credits. And that we do a package. So many credits for a major program, so many credits for a minor program, so many credits for a second minor program, so many credits for an audit program. And therefore, the whole system of accreditation of the university, the program, the rating agencies, the faculty training, everything has to change. And that's going to take time. It may take a few years. There'll be definitely early adapters. We'll be one of the early adapters. I think we are there. And I'm sure there are very many other universities who are already preparing to adapt to this because this is a new gold standard, so to say.
Right.
But there will be some few who will resist the change. They'll take a long time to adapt and change. But they must change in order that the education system as a whole in this country improves and is going to become a world class. That is my view. Answer your question?
Yeah. If there's one very significant and might I add potent enabler and facilitator in this entire policy to make it really happen on the ground, it's got to be a subject that's very close to your heart, and that's technology. Yes. At one end, you have an already divided country looking at the sinister threat of a digital divide. On the other hand, you have a huge opportunity of being the world's largest democracy and also the world's youngest country. So you have the benefit of a demographic dividend. Now, how do you see these two merged in a situation? Because both are going to bring in pull and push to make this education policy on the ground really happen.
Brilliant question, Chetan, because you've spoken what I wanted to speak. I was waiting to say it. Okay, so I'm going to again take you back into an analogy before I answer your question, because I think most of the answers are best done when you give an analogy or an example from the past. This education policy states one of its objectives to be able to provide education and knowledge to the modern, creating a modern, vibrant India, right? That's the stated objective, modern, vibrant India. I'm going to take you back to early to mid 80s. We are, one of the early architects of the Indian IT industry. I come from a generation that were the first to create the IT industry in this country. I happen to be also one of the co-founders of the NASCOM. I don't know if you heard about it.
Of
One of
course,
7 people who signed articles of NASCOM.
of course.
That was in 85, approximate time frame, 82, 87. So at that point of time, we are trying to do what is called software development in India. I'm narrating a story just briefly. You bear with me for a minute. Nobody had heard of software in India. In fact, people did not even know the difference between hardware and the software within our country. And whenever we went to do, we saw enormous opportunity because we saw the youth, the talent of this country are enormously talented. And generation after generation, I find that they're getting to be more and more brighter, smarter, hardworking, more, driven to success. This country is blessed. This country is destined to become a top country, the world's best country in the next 10, 15 years. Mark my words. This is going to be one of the best country top. I'll give you another forecast I've given, the Der Spiegel magazine. One of the leading German magazine, Der Spiegel. It was, I think, the late 80s. And I was coming from Hanover Fair at me in a train station to coming to Frankfurt. And I met with them on the train, and they interviewed me on the train coming from India all the way to Hanover Fair. They asked me, what brings you here? What do you think is going to happen to software industry? I said, in my view, India has the best talent for producing software. Indian brain thinks analytically, critically, and are best suited for developing software. And the Chinese are going to be dominant players in hardware. This was, I'm telling you, late 80s.
Wow.
You can go into your archives and search. I can't get that far. As a journalist, you may be able to get into Der Spiegel's archives of late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
And now, 30 years later, if you were to come and look at it, China is the world leader in electronic hardware, and India is the world leader in software.
Absolutely.
If I had gone in mid 80s, when I had gone to, so I was going to say that is a kind of, I'm blessed to be able to say that some of my vision comes true.
Brilliant.
Maybe it is just because I'm the right person at the right time and the right job. It just so happens. It's not because I take credit for it. I just happen to be there at the right time at the right place with the right thing to do. Second thing is that when we went to do the software promotion in US, many times they asked the question, we only heard of cows and saints on the roads in India. Where is software from India? It was late 80s, 87, 88. In fact, one customer whom I had met asked the question, I'm a little confused. I've never heard of India for software. Have you come here to buy software or have you come to sell software? I'm a little confused. Can you please tell me clearly? Okay, this is what is India in IT industry in mid 80s to late 80s, 85 to 88, 89. And now you go to the same US, you are a startup. You seek any equity funding, a private equity funding, a venture funding, or angel funding, or whatever funding you want. The first question they ask you is, what is your India story? Do you have a tie-up? Are you going to open your own branch? Are you going to have a partner? Are you going to have a subsidiary? Are you going to have a captive facility in India with some other service provider? If you don't have tie-up your India story and come back, then we talk about funding you. We come up 180 degrees opposite. It is possible only because this country's talented youth. It is only possible because this country's talented new generation entrepreneurs. I'm saying new generation entrepreneurs because IT industry is blessed with all first generation entrepreneurs. All of them are. You can mention it. I don't want to be mentioning names. I'm sure you know many of them. That all of them are first generation entrepreneurs. And they made great success of a new industry where none existed. We had zero industry in 82, 83 when we all started our careers in IT entrepreneurship. And today we're touching $200+ billion. And the government now is asking us to go to shoot for $500 billion as an industry. How was it possible? It was possible because of a new generation of entrepreneurs, a new generation of Indian youth who are very talented, who are very creative, who are very hardworking, who want to achieve in their life by their performance, not from their daddy's will. That generation is driving the modern India. And thankfully, that generation is growing in numbers. As you rightly said, we have the youngest population now, even now. 30 years later, we even have a more educated, younger population. I see them brighter, smarter, more hardworking, more achievement, more driven. And with that kind of a population, we are blessed to succeed. All that we need is to provide them the right tools, the right knowledge, the right education, right training, right guidance, right mentorship to be able to take the path. And they will run with the ball. I'm sure they will overtake you and outperform you and beat you all up. And with that, I'm saying we'll create the new modern India. We'll go into areas where we've never been before. In IT industry, we never there earlier. And I can say, to some extent, healthcare industry has followed in the same lines.
Right.
20 years ago, 25 years ago, people used to go for every bypass surgery for a cancer treatment. They used to go abroad, those who could afford it. The others kind of suffering in silence.
Right.
But now, people from abroad are coming to India for treatment. So healthcare industry is reversed that trend. Similarly, there are many industries we can talk about where things are beginning to happen, and there are many more new, innovative, new industries happening. And that churn is happening only by the youth of the country.
Absolutely.
And that youth in this country are in abundance. And they have creative energy. They have the brilliance. They have the, what do we say, drive to achieve it. You just have to train them, provide them the knowledge, provide them the direction, and make them run with the ball. And I'm sure it's going to transform this to propel this country. Like I said to Dash Pagel, I can tell you this. 30 years from now, I may not be around, but you will wait to see that India will be number one in the world in GDP. We'll overtake everybody else, given the conviction that we change our education system. We change the teaching methodologies. We change the way people are learning knowledge rather than degrees. We are not going to focus the education system getting a degree, an undergrad or a PhD or whatever is a qualification for a job, but the knowledge acquisition and the ability to risk and take a risk and say that failure is not, the end of life. Failure means winning up a new career. And that is going to happen in India. We're going to watch it. That all of that will be possible with a basic framework like a new education policy. That is my view. And in fact, that's why I strongly support it. And in fact, we will be hoping that we'll be the first university to register under the new education policy of the government of India. We already written to the government to say, please register us as number one. We are in the list. There may be others opposing you, but we are there. We want to register. Please give us a certificate, whatever needs to be done. Does it answer your question?
It answers that and a lot more. Well, firstly, let me assure you that I'm going to definitely preserve your prophecy of India's future as being a world leader, without question. Secondly, I think it's very important, that you mentioned about your association with NASSCOM. I mean, I've had the pleasure of interviewing several people from there, starting with the late Devang Mehta and then Kiran Karnik. We've spent a lot of rounds of understanding NASSCOM and just how you have actually been such a strong guiding ship to the entire industry. And also, of course, for highlighting the importance of technology per se. And that was a game changer for this country. It wasn't the 1991 infusion as much as technology. The game changer actually came from technology, which converted India from an agri economy to a service-led economy. And now, perhaps what we need as a student of economics is, I'd say, to get us that double-digit growth, we need to have the benefits of technology, both in manufacturing as well as in agriculture, to see, the multiple gains. That having been said, sir, I'm going to come back to one concern, which over the years I've seen in my observation of those who run education institutions, and that's with the flow of funds, and which is very important, when you look at forming a sustainable institution and one with your ambition of being that of global eminence. I'm going to again restructure my thinking of three compartments of those who were running education institutions and where they fell short. Well, the first, of course, you mentioned was the government funding, the grants. Now, whenever you had that in institutions, you've seen that the simple lack of accountability had seen the denigration of education in those institutions, right? They've held the brand together, but they haven't held the quality of education,
Yeah.
and certainly not the quality of the institution, whether it was physically or even in terms of concepts and pedagogy. The second, of course, has been this new age entrepreneur that's come into being, and who believes that this is a great business opportunity as well, while dispelling relevant education. But here he gets marred by the fee structure because he comes into competition with a global experience because that's what he requires. Since if he wants to get global activity going out here, you've got to pay the same price. But then the experience which global education brings is obviously lacking out here, while the fee may be commensurate to that. So he gets challenged there. And third, of course, is a lot of these industrialists which you mentioned. Some, of course, have been great philanthropists, but others have simply treated this as a CSR venture, where the cause of education had a far less mental as well as executional functioning than the effect of a tax benefit. So, somewhere along the line, whatever happened never brought out a sustained flow of money to create an institute of global eminence. How are you going to overcome this?
Okay, I think your question, I have to address it in two parts. The first one, I'm going to continue with the IT industry example to bring in what is needed to the education sector, and then I go into the funding aspect of it. The IT industry example that in NASCOM, as you said earlier, of course, as one of the co-founders, I can say that we have several contradictions in the industry. Foreign versus local, service versus products, Indian products versus foreign products, service companies versus project-oriented companies. So many companies with diverse interests, often conflicting with each other's business interests, came together with a common objective of promoting the industry for the good of India and for the companies themselves. So the NASCOM's basic mantra was cooperate and compete. That is to say, as an industry, we would cooperate. As an IT industry, we would cooperate, whether we represent the government or we represent foreign agencies or foreign clients or whatever. We provide a good unified interface as cooperate as the Indian IT industry. But as individual companies, we used to compete fearlessly. Same companies, for the same projects, for the same code, 5 Indian companies go, each will pitch on their own merits and compete for the competition. But when it comes back to the industry, we will provide a unified front. We will not say, I lost this order to so-and-so, therefore, and I come back and say, are we going to hit back on it? That was never the case of the industry. They would just see, as an industry cooperate, as individual companies compete, which I believe is not happening in the education sector today. That's why I'm drawing the analogy today. There is no cooperation and there's no competition. Both are absent. If the institutions were cooperating, we would have faculty visiting from top-notch schools to the other schools who are less privileged, who cannot afford the top branded faculty or facilities or infrastructure, shared labs. Why should we go abroad for, creating a semester abroad program? Why can't we do within the, top university in the country, providing the support to the lower quartile of this country's universities and colleges to say, hey, you guys cannot afford to use your own lab. Come and use my lab in your summer holidays. Why can't we cooperate within ourselves? On the other hand, the top universities are going and branding, say, I'll give you a semester abroad, I'll give you this abroad, this abroad. I mean, this is becoming a labeling issue. So cooperation between industry, between universities is missing. And second, competition is absent. Only now in the recent few years, we have seen even something close to an Indian ranking system. Before that, a ranking system was absent in this country. We didn't even fit into the top few hundred of the global ranking, so we are outside the ranking purview. Now that we have our own national ranking, so we at least have some ranking, but there's no competition. Unless we compete, we don't, improve our performance. Even if you're a great athlete, I mean, you're a sports person, you need to have someone equally good to be able to play opposite to him, to be able to raise your own game and your own bar. In fact, in electronics, we have a system. It says negative feedback improves system performance. Only if you have negative feedback, it improves the performance of the system. If you don't have negative feedback, you think you're doing great and you cannot improve yourself anymore. You come to a saturation point. So that being the case of this industry, the first thing that we need to have is a level playing platform, which NEP will bring.
Right.
Second is an opportunity to cooperate and compete with not only with Indian universities, even allows top 100 universities of the world to come and open up here. So you'll be forced to compete. You'll be forced to cooperate. You'll have some dimensional activity taking place within the policy, which is, I think, a great place to begin. And having said that, your question becomes very important. The second part, how do you fund it? Obviously, it's easy to say, it's difficult to do it. Good education is expensive. Let's understand that. Because you have to pay good salaries to be able to get the best faculty. If you're only driven by a standard pay package, there is no incentive for any faculty to perform better than others. Even within academic community, there need to be competition. Within the institution, there must be competition. Within institutions in India and abroad, there must be competition. Within India and abroad faculty, there should be an exchange program. Let us understand the faculty in the US. Simple. They have rankings based on papers published, based on books written, based on students' evaluation of the faculty. Where is that in India? So in the absence of that, we are forced to look at ourselves. We have to introspect. Where are we going to improve quality? If we have to improve quality, where are the faculty? Where is the infrastructure?
Right.
How do we improve the infrastructure? How do we get with the faculty with the best in the country? How can we can that lecture and then spread it around the country? Or how can we get foreign faculty to come and teach in our program? Sai University is going to plan that. We are planning to say minimum of 25% to a maximum of 50% of our courses will be by visiting faculty.
Sure.
And therefore, we need to pay them. I mean, you pay top money to get the best faculty in the world.
Right.
And that's going to make the system more expensive. So how do you afford it? Obviously, we're looking at a model. There are two models here. One is the CapEx and the other is OpEx.
Mm-hmm.
The CapEx in terms of infrastructure, you need to make sure that you provide the best in campus facility so the student and faculty have the best experience when they're in the campus. That makes sure that you attract the top students, we attract the top faculty from India and abroad. Just excuse me for a second. Lights going off.
I mean, actually, we've had a timeout till about 1 o'clock, but anyway. So we'll probably come to the last question, sir.
No, I had to wrap up the funding part of it.
Go ahead.
The key is, therefore, the CapEx part of it, universities have to find the money to invest, the land, the building, infrastructure, and so on. There's no way that you can take it away. And that has to get the best faculty, best student, the best campus experience for students and faculty. That is the only way. Because in our experience, learning happens not only in the classroom. Learning happens more outside classroom, peer-to-peer learning. When the students have a breakout, they talk to each other, that's learning. When students meet faculty outside classroom, then they learn. So the campus environment and learning is very important. That's many universities abroad is in fact are residential, so that you have learning not only from classroom, but from other students and faculty interaction. Second, the operating expense side. That is the part which is controllable. That is the part which, the fees are going to be high because you need to get the best of quality education. It is expensive. That's why in Sai University we are proposing that we will say those who can afford the fees will pay for it. Those who cannot afford it, we'll say that we'll arrange, let's say, tie up with the bank or something to pay for it, and then they can pay for it. And those who really cannot afford it, we can provide the scholarship to make sure that their income level or their family's income level is not a detriment to their pursuing higher education. In fact, right now, one of the trusts that we are running in my personal capacity, I'm running, we are providing 3,000 student scholarships a year. And in fact, that is where in the last 22 years I've learned the kind of weaknesses in Indian higher education system. That a student from a village is not able to pursue higher education beyond a certain level because of monetary consideration, although they have very high performance in academic scores. So we're going to bridge that gap to say, we will provide you what it takes. Just go study. Your job is to study, and we will take care of the financial part of it. So the funding has to be from, in terms of the affordable students paying for it, or a bank loan or scholarship as a means to make sure the fees are met. But the student should not face the challenge. The student should focus on acquiring knowledge and getting educated, getting degrees as incidental to pursuit of knowledge, and then, of course, pursuing themselves towards furthering their life, their own life, their community, their society, and the country. That is where I see. The money is not the student's problem. Money is a problem of the parents and the family and the society. We should take care of that.
It's quite incredible how you're able to marry philanthropic thought with the enterprise action. Thank you for that. We are now approaching the fag end of our conversation, Mr. Ramani, and I often end by taking an advice from you for all our viewers on 4 very critical players in the education environment. A, the student, B, the teacher, C, the parent, and 4th, the vice chancellor. What would be your advice to them?
On the 4, what will be what?
Sorry, what would be your advice to each of these, given the current stressful scenario that we are
in? The student, the teacher,
what the parent, and the vice chancellor.
Vice chancellor.
Yes.
In my view, the 4 are not separate. They are combined into one holistic part. They're all part of the education system. A student is, the one who's going through the education. That doesn't mean the student is isolated from the faculty. Each is an integral part of the whole system. The education system, not only that, I'll add to it one more person that you missed out, the policymaker or the governance. The policymaker and the governance, and they are very much part of the system. Don't forget that governance policies set the tone for the curriculum, and of course the quality accreditation systems, and they are also an equal part of it. So if you take all of the stakeholders, the 6 stakeholders, that the 4 you mentioned, plus the governance and the policymakers and the regulators, the 6 of them, together form the education system. One party alone cannot change the system. I would say the whole has to change, and each constituent player, each stakeholder has to do their bit with a conscious effort to say that we are going to transform the education in this country. We're going to make this country great again in world's leadership, and we're going to make sure the next generation of scientists, engineers, doctors, and lawyers, and all of that from a global arena comes from India, and India's kind of pride of place is restored as a top nation in the country. Do you know that some economist told me, I'm not sure you're an economist, I guess, that about 100 or 200 years ago, India had the world's highest GDP.
Is that true? Very true.
Which year was it?
Well, I think it was, no, I'm not quite sure about the year.
Let's say 200-300 years ago, 400 years ago. It's not more than that.
No, a little more than that.
500 years ago?
Yeah, around that time, yeah.
Okay, whatever, 400-500 years ago. Why can't we get back there? That's my simple question. If all the stakeholders, the governance, the policy makers, the universities which are part of the system, I mean, you say university. When I said university, of course, it's chancellor, vice chancellor, the faculty all together. And then the student and the parent, all the stakeholders get together and make India great again. Because education is the biggest leveler. When you get educated, all the other societal differences go away. When you're not educated, the problem today in this country is lack of education. When you're not educated, all other problems surface. We have many problems in the country. I'm not a political person, so I don't want to touch on these subjects individually. But we see all the social trauma, the tension this country is facing in several fronts. All are all arising out of ignorance or lack of knowledge. The moment you get knowledge, the moment you get educated and you become kind of illuminated, then you have working towards a higher purpose in life. And when you're working towards a higher purpose in life, the lower differences seem to kind of disappear suddenly. You no longer look at yourself as X, Y, Z, or community, caste, creed, religion. All of those differences disappear. You
Right,
look at the nation together, and that leveler is only education.
right.
And therefore, I'm saying if all of these stakeholders, the seven stakeholders and the pillars of this education system, can transform India to be great again, we can be number one GDP in the world again. India will be world's top nation and a great country that we can all be proud of. That's what I will say.
A very intricate part of such a large conversation and such an educating conversation is the need to have strong recall and strong remembrance. That can only be done by simplification. So I'm going to try and simplify this entire conversation through one letter, and that's the letter L. Starting with L representing leveler, as you used education with leveler. And more importantly, and the letter L, representing learning. So much of learning which you provided us with these last several minutes. Then, laudable, the effort that you're taking to ensure that Sai fulfills your vision of global evidence is certainly laudable. Is liberating through education. And the final L is the most important for me. I loved it. I loved having spoken to you. Thank you for your time, Mr. Ramani. It was a pleasure to have you on HeliumAid.in.